Okay, I'd like to call a common council meeting for October 15th to order. Has it been appropriately noticed?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Alderman Shaw,
Here.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Here.
Zwart.
Here.
Alderman Stray.
Here.
Alderman Kavieski.
Here.
Alderman Rogers.
Here.
Alderman Rozak.
Here.
Okay, the first item is a public hearing for Gordy's Langfront Marine. This public hearing has been postponed to November 5th, 2019 at 7:30, so we're not going to be doing that one tonight. The second item is a public hearing for Lake Country Car Wash. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public comment on the application of Lake Country Car Wash requesting a conditional use permit allowing vehicle service car wash at approximately 1600 Summit Avenue. Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. The city received an application for a conditional use permit to allow a car wash in the city, and I will walk you through the application. The site that they wish to be located on is approximately 1600 Summit Avenue. It's highlighted in red. It's immediately south of the newer Quick Trip on the east side of Summit Avenue. The access has no direct access to Summit Avenue. There'd be no driveway. It's not allowed it's a state trunk highway. So the access would be allowed through a 30-foot wide access easement, the same way that Quick Trip is being served. That's a private driveway that is serving that site. This evening on the agenda is also a certified survey map to create this site. Right now, it's a 15.1 acre site, and they would be taking approximately 1 acre off of there. So on the screen, you can see the access easement is way on the right side here, and State Trunk Highway is on the left side, and the site is 1.023 acres in size. So that would be asked, the site has to be created. They did submit a site plan which has since been approved contingent upon their use being approved by the Plan Commission. This is the updated site plan that was submitted. You can see the 30-foot wide access easement way to the right side there. That'd be a continuation from the Quick Trip. And there would be no direct access to the highway, which is on the left side. The site itself complies with all zoning requirements. We have minimum green space requirements, parking, stacking distances, setbacks, etc. For the architecture, the building was approved by the Architectural Commission. This is a tunnel-style car wash. It's a little bit different than the other car washes that we have in the city. It is about 4,300 square feet in area. I'll walk you through the site. When you pull up, you'd be entering into the stacking lanes. There's 3 stacking lanes, so we have a 100-foot minimum requirement of stacking distance for car washes. With these 3 lanes, they certainly meet the intent of that ordinance. They would exceed that requirement. You can also see something that I'm going to bring up later with our conditions and standards is the dumpster area is screened, and this elevation does show the screening of the dumpster. I thought that was important because that's the only slide I have of the proposed dumpster area. As you enter the car wash, you can see there's the entryway going into the car wash. And then as you exit the car wash, this is the north side. This is facing Quick Trip, so you'd exit through. The tunnel-style car wash, one at a time, but you can see it can take more than one vehicle at a time, though. One in a line, there's only a single bay, but multiple cars can be in the bay at a single point in time. Then this would be, as you exit the car wash, this is the south side facing the vacant field. The Quick Trip would be on the other side. As you pull around, they would have external vacuums, which is important for the Common Council to consider because there's a standard later on that we're talking about activities associated with the use. The lighting plan, I know it's faint. I just mostly wanted you to see that there is a lighting plan that was submitted. It does conform with all of our requirements. On the right side of this, you can see the typical pole-based detail. This detail of the lighting will match the Quick Trip style. I have a fixture here, a picture. So I made sure that the fixtures detail and the height and the pole, there'll be continuity with the Quick Trip site. So for lighting, the light levels and the fixtures will all be compatible with the area. Here's an elevation that they've provided showing the light pole on there. So I just wanted to share that with the Common Council members to show you that the lighting will be similar to Quick Trip. As far as landscaping goes, they did submit a plan that exceeds the point requirements. I know this was reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission, but I wanted to share it with you because it is part of their use. They are having plantings around the foundation of the building on both the north and the south side, and then they'll have some other scattered plantings around the site as well. A big discussion that we had was regarding the sanitary discharge. This area was not engineered for heavy discharge water users. This was initially to be more of a business park, office type area, and over the time it got changed to commercial. So this use does fit in the commercial, but it wasn't engineered for heavy usage. It's important to know that this car wash will be recycling, filtering, and reusing anywhere from 70 to 80% of the water on site. So they will not be using as much water as a typical car wash may think they're using. The current piping that's in the ground right now as we speak today can handle the car wash discharge. No problems, so staff wouldn't bring it here if it couldn't. So it can handle the car wash. But if additional heavy users are requested in the future, restaurants, fitness centers, etc., then infrastructure upgrades would be required. So per the conditional use document that's in your packet, I know that's an important thing that the council wants to consider. It does state that there's a condition that any documented change in water discharge, for example, if they stop recycling water, then that will have to be evaluated by the city utilities. At some point, and then I put in the Common Council, could approve upsizing in the area, and any benefiting property would be assessed the cost of these improvements. So that's a really important part of this, and the applicants are certainly aware that they would be expected to potentially help pay for any improvement cost. So for conditional uses, we created standards for vehicle service. That's what this falls under, A through F in the ordinance. I'm going to go through those, and then the applicant's going to also confirm some of the things that I might say. The service must be conducted inside the building. Now, yes, the car wash itself will be internally in a building, but I'm considering that more of a primary service. Vacuums are outside of the building, and to me, those are more of an accessory use. So even though the ordinance says the service must be inside a building, I feel a vacuum outside, when you're inside the car vacuuming, that would be an acceptable use. The second standard is no outside storage unless it's in a screened area. And earlier in the presentation, I said the only outside storage will be in a screened-in masonry dumpster area, a corral. Letter C is all vehicles shall be parked in a designated stall. As I showed you on the site plan, there'll be striped lanes and also some striped parking stalls for parking. Item D is security cameras to be installed by police, and it's a requirement of the conditional use permit that the applicant is to work with the police and install cameras as required. The customer service hours are to be between 7 a.m. and not to exceed 9 p.m. That's listed in the conditional use as a standard, as a requirement for this use. And then the catch-all that we have is shall comply with all other city ordinances and laws. So that's in there, and I think they intend on doing that. So the Plan Commission motioned to the, recommend the conditional use permit to the Common Council back on October 9th, last week. They motioned to send this on to recommend it to you to approve. They also, that same evening, motioned to approve the major design review plans. Those are the site plans, the landscaping, the lighting. But that motion was contingent on the Common Council approving the use for this, the car wash use. So my recommendation this evening is to approve the conditional use as recommended by the Plan Commission. Your updated conditional use is in your packet. I bolded some things and underlined some items the Plan Commission wanted. For the Lake Country Car Wash at approximately 1600 Summit Avenue, per the findings in the staff report and any of the testimony that we heard during the public hearing. I did not go through all the findings, but they're documented in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anybody has a comment on this specific application? Please fill out one of the blue cards. I have one, Stu LaRose. Who is the applicant?
Yes, thank you. My name is Stu LaRose. I'm an architect and project manager with MSI General. And with me is our client, LCCW Investments. It's Christopher Mullet and Will Lepke. They're sitting next to me. And I just wanted to reiterate these 6 standards that Jason Gallo pointed out. We not only meet these, but we certainly agree with every one of them. So we have no issues with them. I don't know if I can really elaborate any more than what Jason had, describing the plans to you and then these uses, but we are certainly here and available if you have any questions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and move on to regular business. Next item is approval of the meeting minutes from September 17th, 2019. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes passed. Comments and suggestions from citizens. Anybody has any comment on any subject, please fill out one of the blue cards. I'll call it in random order. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, and try not to repeat what somebody else has said. Talia Laird.
Oh, thank you. Hey.
Hi, everyone. My name is Talia, and I'm here to talk to you tonight about the 5G plans for Oconomowoc. So I want to start by sharing with you that I'm just a normal person. I'm a mom, I have a little boy, and I used to be a teacher, so I worked in the public schools here. And I'm currently a small business owner. So I use technology every day. I've always used technology every day. And I like technology. I'm not opposed to technology. However, what I can't stand for is when technology starts to become a human health experiment. And I feel like we are approaching that line. So there are a lot of issues that I foresee with the 5G proposed plans. One of those comes from my knowledge of mathematics. I was a math teacher, so I know all about frequency waves. And one of the things that I know is that 4G and 3G waves, which is the current frequency that we use for our internet, our wireless, our Bluetooth, all of the current things that we have in place. One of the things that I know about those frequency waves is that the way that the waves are constructed, they're a much longer and shorter wavelength. So they are spread out much further than the proposed 5G waves. So that's significant because it has to do with how far apart you need to have towers placed in order for them to be effective in running your technology. So if we were to implement 5G waves, those are a much taller wave curve, and they are much closer together as a result. To get them to carry the same distance, you need many, many more waves in order to get the same length, right? So that becomes problematic because in order for the 5G waves to be effective, there are small gaps and things in how the 5G waves would run. So 4G and 3G would also need to be emitted from all of the towers that would be placed around our community and into our neighborhoods. So currently, the proposed, I guess, amount of 5G devices would be between every 2 and 8 homes in a neighborhood. So, you know, picture your neighbor and then the house next to it would have to have it. So one of the issues with that is that the 4G and 3G waves, like I said, are much longer. So now you're not only increasing your radiation from 5G waves, but you're also adding in, you know, additional 3G and 4G waves, which are not intended to be spaced that close together. So that's really concerning to me. Additionally, even just the strength of the waves. So a typical 4G frequency would emit between 1 and 6 gigahertz. 5G devices can emit as high as 300 gigahertz. So that's a really significant change in the amount of radiation that our families would be exposed to. Did you know that the military actually uses 5G frequency waves as a crowd control weapon? They use a 95 gigahertz wave. So 95 gigahertz is considered a crowd control amount. 300 gigahertz is the potential of a 5G device stationed on your house, on your schools. And basically what the military does with it is they use it to emit heat. It heats up the skin and the eyes of people, and that is how they intend to have crowds disperse. So I personally find that extremely alarming, especially knowing that I have a little boy at home. What would that do to a developing brain, or a developing fetus for that matter? There are numerous scientists and doctors who have devoted their entire lives to research in this area and to human care. And they have written letters to our governing bodies, basically begging and hoping that the 5G movement will be put to a halt, and explaining the catastrophic health risks that we're imposing on our entire community of people. And all of those are backed by years and years of research on 3G and 4G and the effects of that. So I just want to share a couple of interesting research studies. I'm going to try to just summarize as quick as I can, but one thing I found interesting was a study done in Germany. It was researchers studied 1,000 residents who lived in close proximity to 2 cell phone towers for about 10 years. So that's only a 10-year exposure. That's not really very long when you think about somebody who might be growing up from childhood to adulthood. And these were just cell phone towers, so they weren't necessarily 5G. But according to the study, during the last 5 years of their observations, researchers discovered that neighbors living within 400 meters of a cell phone tower were diagnosed with cancer at a rate that was 3 times higher than those who lived much further away from a tower. So again, that's a much lower level of radiation exposure. And even there was a 3 times higher chance of getting cancer. Another study was in 1994, so this was actually well before 3G or 4G, or obviously 5G. And this was done in London, and it was basically people who were living in an apartment building with a cell phone tower living like on top of it, so it was mounted on the roof. And what they found is that the cancer rate of those living in the top several floors of the apartment building, so those closest to the tower, obviously, had a cancer rate that was 10 times those of living in London in general. So this one apartment building with 1,000-ish people in it, those top couple of floors had 10 times the chance of developing cancer than people who just lived in London anywhere else. Then there was a man named Dr. Stein, and he recently wrote a letter to the Federal Communications Commissions outlining his concerns about 5G. And one of those would be how it impacts human skin, which seems really strange, but your skin is actually your largest organ on your body. So when he said that human skin has the ability to absorb more than 90% of radiation and and that will cause major problems, obviously, from head to toe. That didn't surprise me at all, but it did scare me. So he did make note that kids, elderly, and pregnant women were particularly at risk. And then did you know that the U.S. government actually currently uses microwave radiation as a non-lethal weapon? So it's a little bit more direct and a little more intense than what we're looking at here, but it is still considerably close, and it is 5G, so it's similar. And then the last study that I want to highlight today is the Ramazzini study, which was, they exposed about 2,500 rats from their prenatal life, so, before being born, until their natural death. And they exposed them to environmental cell tower radiation for 19 hours a day. So not even the full day, and just to normal cell tower radiation, not even 5G. So this is significantly less radiation than what we would be receiving on a daily basis. And so this is the first study to be completed at this scale. That's a pretty large study, and to be completed over a significant period of time. And so together, those studies make a really strong argument for increased awareness of guidelines that may need to be put into place to protect our public health and safety. Different health experts from around the world have weighed in on this subject and highlighted the potential for things like cancer and brain tumors and a ton of other really long-term health consequences. And when I sit here and think about it, it's like the thing that we gain from it is to be able to scroll Facebook faster, which seems just kind of ridiculous to me. So I really see a moral and an ethical concern here. I feel that things are backwards right now, and I feel that the technology companies should be here where I am, trying to prove to you that what they want to do is safe, not me trying to stand here and prove to you what they want to do is unsafe. And I feel that there are a lot of other things that we've done in our history of human life that have been similar, like the introduction of cigarettes, right? We found out many, many years after, tons of pregnant women smoked cigarettes that those were unsafe. Why wasn't there any testing done ahead of time? Because people didn't question it. So I'm here to question. I'm here to make you think. I'm here to keep you up at night. And most of all, I want you to consider your own kids, your grandkids, your neighbors' kids, the kids at the school down the street from you. Imagine one of these towers up on top of that school. Kids spend more time at school than they do at home, more awake time anyways. I guess the last question I'll leave you with is, do you feel that it's fair and that it's right and ethical that our future generations are subjected to being basically a human experiment? Thank you.
Thank you. Please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Laura?
My name is Laura Ustianowska. I live at W379N62 North Lake Road. I'm here because this is the first Common Council meeting after the announcement that US Cellular is going to roll out 5G in the first quarter of 2020. And I know people have been here talking to you about that for the last year, and you've all received really good information in your comprehensive binders. And some of you are more concerned than others, but even if it's not a big concern for you, maybe you can try to imagine if the things that we're presenting to you are true, what our city will look like in 5 or 10 years. Right now, Oconomowoc is a super family-friendly place. I love living here. There's always stuff going on to bring my kids to. But in 5 or 10 years, if we have 5G here, and a couple gets married, they settle here, they want to start their family, and then they can't because they have infertility problems because of 5G. Or the neurological effects. A lot more people in our city will be depressed, and that'll just kind of change the feel of our city. We'll have more diabetes and heart disease and dementia. It won't be a healthy place anymore the way it is now. And it's worse on kids, as we've been talking about. And so think of like the potential rates of pediatric cancer. Nobody wants to be in a town that's having a lot of cases of that. And remember that it's cumulative and eventually irreversible. And we don't really need more studies. Like anybody who says it's not settled, they're just kind of taking something out of the big tobacco playbook to make you feel unsure, but it's not true, it's settled. I really feel like this shouldn't be imposed, and I know that to a certain extent, the state and federal government isn't giving you as much freedom as we would like, but I'm going to put forth some suggestions of things I'd like to see that you could potentially do to get ahead of this, because I'd like to see a plan, not just we're trying to keep up with it as it rolls along. So a well-advertised workshop put on by the city itself to present information to the citizens and to get their input, especially input from people who are radio frequency sensitive, because this will make them disabled and they will need to be accommodated then. These are ordinances I would like to see. No small cell within 1,000 feet of a residential property line. No small cell within 1,500 feet of a civic area like a school, a hospital, a church, or library. I know that they talk about how close it needs to be together, but right now Verizon actually has a commercial you can watch on YouTube if you want that shows they can, their 5G signal travels more than 3,000 feet. So these limitations shouldn't be a problem for them. More things I'd like to see. 15,000 feet between small cells and antenna, even if they're from different providers. No cutting of trees. Easy to reach support for those who have issues with the noise or health or safety. Because we need a place for people to report these things where they can be confident that it will be looked into, action will be taken, and this could be funded by the provider's yearly support fees. Proof that the companies have adequate liability, like $2 million per small cell for malfunction, accidents, damages, and injuries from exposure to the non-ionizing radiation. This will also protect the city. And a notice to any residents within 1 mile of a proposed small cell so that people can come and give their own opinions, and I'd like the whole shot clock used so there's more time for people to come forward. And this is my last thing. Required signage by all small cells with RF safety info and both the name of the company and city contacts on it. Last thing. This is something new that you might not have heard yet. Just on August 10th, there was a unanimous decision against the FCC by the U.S. Court of Appeals of the District of Columbia, overturning the March 2018 FCC order that eliminated the environmental, health, and historic preservation criteria for local government review of 4G and 5G small cell antenna applications. And I don't know enough about law to know what that means, if they're going to appeal it again and if it just works in that district or whatnot. But I think it's really good to know that the fight back against it is winning in some places. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Cutler?
Hi. My thoughts are jumbled, but they're short. So I'm against 5G as well. Repeat everything, I believe everything they said. I have a personal story. My husband he's sensitive to EMF. So he was actually bedridden for 3 years due to other complications as well. But we were living in an apartment at one time because he was so bedridden, we couldn't take care of a house. And the Wi-Fi in an apartment is just crazy, right? Like everybody gets their own and it's all going through. So we bought out here in Economwalk because we wanted to be far away from Wi-Fi as we could. And he is since not bedridden and back to a normal life. Again, he had other complications like Lyme, but he is EMF sensitive. So in our home, we wired our whole home for hardwire internet. So we don't have Wi-Fi in our house, and we love that we can do that. And we don't use the microwave as often as we try to use the oven more. So we are doing what we personally can to avoid it. And I just feel like this 5G is an invasion of our privacy, and if it affects our health, we will move. we will move. We will get up again and move again because it is that important to be away from it. We will tell others not to move here because we care about people, and we don't want this to be, we don't want to hide anything. If our town has 5G, we'll be like, well, don't move here, I mean, maybe the person that buys our house, we won't say anything to, but got to think this through all the way. But we'll tell people it's not worth it to live in a 5G area. He couldn't be here tonight to tell you this, so I'm talking on his behalf. But he has done a lot of research. 3 years bedridden will do that to you. You just lay there and you read, and he's an engineer, and he's way smarter than me. So if you want to talk to him sometime, he's a great person with a lot of knowledge about staying away from EMF. So that's my personal story. I know that the Oconomowoc Enterprise did an article on Facebook about 5G coming here, and the comments were like all bad. And there were shares, and there was uproar. It's not like people are excited. I mean, maybe there's not hundreds of people here today, but I can get you hundreds of people that don't want it. And just look at that Facebook post and see that people don't want it here. I know maybe this feels like citizens coming in and complaining, well, I don't want a stop sign here, but I do. And who do you listen to? Like, who's the squeaky wheel? And is it really that big a deal to put a stop sign there? You have to tell some people no, because otherwise you would never have a decision, right? But I feel like this is a case that is not anywhere near that. This is an actual health crisis. And I just think Oconomowoc can be an example by not implementing it and say, look, we'll consider it for the future, but let's wait until we know more. Let's be the city that doesn't put our citizens' health in jeopardy and then regrets it later. And then the last thing I wanted to say, I guess one more thing is just that I ask that if you do implement 5G, you let us know everything you can and change your tagline. Life comes naturally here. Life comes with 5G here, is what I say, if that happens. Do you have any questions for me?
This is for you to speak.
Okay, just making sure, because I can answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill Persick?
Hello, my name is Jill Persick. I live at 701 York Imperial Drive in Oconomowoc. And I'm against 5G, as you all know, because I've been here before. And tonight, it's grading night. This is give the Common Council a grade. And it's an F on many counts, because I found out for the first time from our local newspaper that we were slated to get 5G. And it says we're the first areas to be able to access US Cellular's 5G network, and they're in Wisconsin and Iowa, with Oconomowoc and Waukesha being the first local communities to gain access. And I'm like, why would that be? In all the states and in all of Wisconsin. So I'm like scratching my head. So first, I resent finding out first from our newspaper and not from you that this is what's happening. And these are the Fs, the grades. The F is for following your own strategic plan in these areas. So I'm grading specific strategic plan items. First, you said we are one team building community strength through collaboration. F, that's my grade. 2, we focus on the safety of our community and employees. F. 3, you said we provide a safe and secure community. My grade's F for that one. And 4, we use a proactive approach. That's like triple F regarding 5G technology. And 5, you said, and will be better understand our citizens' needs, wants, expectations, and priorities. And in light of the news, the current news on 5G, that's definitely an F. And so why would I be grading an F on that? For nearly 2 years, citizens have been asking you for informational meetings, for a comprehensive technology committee that includes experts on wireless technology, citizens, city leadership, health experts. We've asked for a comprehensive IT vision plan. We've asked for a change in cell tower ordinances for more transparency, and none of that has been responded to. So all of those requests for 2 years from citizens have, for the most part, fallen on deaf ears. For the most part, particularly yours, Mayor Nold, and Ms. Kinsibil, who creates the agenda for the council discussion, and especially for you, Mayor, who has a 30-year employment history with We Energies. And I would think you wouldn't want the community to wonder if there's a connection to that and that you had a vested interest in the rollout of 5G, because that will dramatically increase the need for energy in this community. So it feels like a betrayal, and to me it smells bad. In just touring recently Oconomowoc, I see the posts. There's likely hundreds of posts lining especially the business parks and the outside areas and around the hospital. And those I know are all set up and ready to go. That's like setting the stage for the infrastructure for 5G. So how do those get there? And who's decided that? And the last point is, I've heard over and over that this is a state and a federal issue, especially from our attorney, Mr. Riffle. And my quest, so I understand it's a state and local issue, but my question is, have you contacted the state representatives? Have you talked to Barbara Dietrich? Have you spoken to Ron Johnson? Have you knocked on the doors and burned the phone lines down with all the representatives from the state and the local, or rather the state and the federal government? What have you done to ask the questions? My guess is, because I haven't heard that our local community leaders have had any pushback on 5G. Even to find out, like, what are our options? Or what else can we do? Or what is the difference between fiber optics and 5G? And is the expense that much different? And I wonder what our citizens would want. So as you've said, we've elected you to represent us, but I don't think you have. You're representing yourselves and those that agree with you that 5G poses no risk to our health and our privacy and our security.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to regular business. First item is the consent agenda. We have several items there, licenses, a couple of electric utility easements, water and wastewater utility agreement, the 2020 joint powers agreement between the County 911 and Dodge County, and the Treasurer's report. So we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I just would like to ask any question, just a real brief
Sure.
question about the joint powers agreement, what that all entails. If somebody could just comment on that for like 20
Chief?
seconds
One of the chiefs?
for the folks that are all here. Chief?
Matt?
What is the joint powers agreement?
It's a mutual aid agreement between us and Dodge County, so if their emergency equipment comes into the city of Oconomowoc, they can act in the same capacity as they would in Dodge County, and likewise if we go up to Dodge County.
Do we have that same thing with Jefferson County too?
You have mutual aid with all your counties around you.
Okay. That was it.
Thank you. Any
That
other
was,
comments?
that was an easy one from me, right?
Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Excuse me. Okay, going on to Plan Commission. First item is consider act on a certified survey map to create one new lot at approximately 1600 Summit Avenue. We need a motion to approve the certified survey map.
So moved.
Second.
Jason?
This certified survey map was discussed at the public hearing earlier this evening. It's taking a single lot and dividing it into two. Currently it's a 15.1 acre site, and they're dividing 1 acre off for the development of a commercial car wash along Summit Avenue. The Plan Commission did review this. It does conform with all of the zoning requirements. It has frontage on a road. They won't have access on that road. They'll have access through that utility or access easement. The Plan Commission discussed this, and they did recommend the certified survey map to the council with a positive recommendation.
Jason? Any comments, questions? Go ahead.
The particular use for this piece of property, do we have a anticipated traffic flow? My concern with this is access. We have one point of access off of Oconomowoc Parkway with no other way to enter that property and the traffic count associated with that and the existing business. Is that going to create emergency access issues or?
No, for this lot, as well as the Quick Trip being served off of one access, is adequate. The fire department has reviewed this. From a planning standpoint, I don't have a problem with it as well. As this future lot develops, you see the remnant piece there, there'll probably be a secondary means of access, put in at a future date, but to have one lot, not every lot needs two forms of egress.
Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead.
You had mentioned heavy water usage. In the case that, say, both the Quick Trip and this other entity have maximum amount of cars that are coming through, like right after winter is over and everybody wants to go ahead and get the salt off their cars and things on those lines, are we gonna have a problem?
That's a great question, but right now, that's the next item, and I don't really want to talk about that until the next item. This item that 8A is just creating the lot, and I think we should get into those discussions. But if you have a problem with the lot itself, we could talk about that.
Well, I do, because the bottom line here is that if we create the lot, then we're pretty much just stating that we're gonna go ahead and say yes, okay? So I'm thinking, Mayor, that we should really address both of these at the same time, not one thing at a time. So I don't know if I can make a motion, but
Oh, no, hang on.
You don't need to. Just take it up on an orderly basis that you're not going to approve the land split.
So you approve the
until you
CUP?
approve the CUP.
Okay, so we'll,
If you don't, you don't.
so we'll start with item B instead. Okay,
That's exactly right.
okay. So we'll wait and we'll do item B. Do we have a motion and a second on item A?
We do.
Do we have to take that?
I'll withdraw the motion. on item
I'll
A.
withdraw my
Oh, the
second.
Okay, let's go to item B. Consider act on a conditional use permit for vehicle service car wash located at approximately 1600 Summit Avenue. We need a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
I'll move to approve the conditional use permit, which is item B.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Now, you can address that
Sure.
question.
Now we can
Thanks.
talk about water usage.
I'll talk about water usage for Alderman Ellis. That was a concern of how much water, as I said in the initial presentation, this area was designed as a business area for low water usage. And the first two users we get in this parcel are car washes. The pipes can handle the amount of discharge from both of these right now, what's in the ground. It's what we're concerned with, and I've had talks with our city engineering department, is what other users are gonna come forward. that's where, and we'll be able to serve future users, but there may be a requirement that we upgrade infrastructure, and the city doesn't want to have to get stuck paying those costs. So we're starting to let the property owner and the applicants know that there could be a potential logjam down the road, and with upgrading those infrastructures, that the city's not going to be responsible for the payments.
I think the question Kevin was asking, though, was, does the system have the capacity to handle multiple car washes running at the same time?
And basically, that's what's going to happen.
Yes, it does.
On a
Because
spring day, you're gonna
Oh,
have that.
right, you're gonna have it on a spring day, you're gonna have it in the middle of winter, you're gonna have it, and my concern here is salt. My concern here is the other discharges associated with that, okay? What effect does that or can have on the land itself, okay? That concerns me an awful lot.
We do have the capacity to take in the water that these two users will be discharging on a heavy day. The pipes are sized appropriately. Regarding the salt, I think that's the whole purpose, is to get the salt off. This car wash has a system in place that they filter the water, they recycle it, and they reuse it. I'm not an expert on car washes. I know the applicants are here. They can maybe explain that a little bit better, but the water would be sent back to and we would filter it as well in the pipes and treat it at the wastewater treatment plant before it gets into the environment. So I think this is the same type of water that comes from any other car wash.
Matt, you had something?
Yeah, a couple issues in this. To Kevin's point, yeah, so the water goes into the waste treatment plant, just like when I flush the toilet, or I take a shower, or I wash my car, well, actually, if I wash my car in my driveway, it's going into the actual sewer, which is also getting treated, right?
If it goes in the storm sewer, it's not.
Storm sewer, okay, so it's slightly different, so it's
Better.
not getting,
It's better.
yeah, the treatment in this would be better than what, if I washed my car in my own driveway, is kind of my point on that. Look, it looks good. It's a nice looking building. I don't think we should be concerned right now about the RECs being used, because our council has given RECs to two very large corporations, Mandel and Newman. This council voted to allow 315 units to be built, just a few, blocks away. That's gonna add 315 units, 700 cars. They're gonna have to wash their car somewhere. They're gonna have to fill up their car somewhere. They're gonna have to get their car worked on somewhere. So I don't see this as a problem given what we've added out there. And we can't really, I don't think we can pick winners and losers in the game of car washes out there. Quick Trip decided to put a car wash right across the street from another car wash. That's their call. If everyone starts going to this place and not going to the Quick Trip, that's not for our concern. It fits in the commercial use out there, and when we get to the vote on it, I'll talk about why I believe they substantially complied with our vehicle service requirements, but I'll cede the floor right now.
Andy?
On the recycling of the water, who monitors that? How does that, I understand when it's new and fresh, it's working fine. But is it the city's responsibility to check on them every 5 years to make sure they don't just let it go to hell in a handbasket? Or how do we guarantee that? Or how is it guaranteed?
Right, we talked about that at length before it got to the Plan Commission. There was additional discussion during the Plan Commission meeting. There's things called flow meters that can go in the sampling manholes. We can check it at any time to make sure that it's at the gallons per minute rate that they've specified that they would comply with. So, we don't know how much, we know what's going into the site, but we don't know what's being discharged. And they're saying, well, we're gonna reuse some of that and let it go,
Well, they're saying 70, 80%.
Right,
if I
70,
heard that right? I mean,
right.
that's substantial. That's not.
Right. Some of that 70%'s going out, but 10% is left on cars or
Fair.
Evaporation in the air, that type
Yep,
of thing,
sure.
so the overspray. So we can always check that. We won't know how much is going out of this unless we do physical testing.
Sure, and we are gonna do that, or it's a maybe? I mean, if this passes, how does,
If
I
we-
guess what I'm saying is it's a fantastic idea, but I really would like to see
We don't have specific language on that. If we feel there's a need, it's written kind of loose in here that if per the direction of the sanitary utility, they feel there's a need, they can go in and check it.
Gotcha. And then what sets this apart from the 6 other car wash lanes in the city roughly? Like what makes this one better or different? Can somebody help me understand that?
What makes this,
A better, or what, I need to understand why a 1-lane tunnel car wash is a great idea.
this is different, my understanding, and if the applicant wants to add on to what I
I would love it,
have,
I'm only asking the question.
I believe it's faster because more cars are being washed at a single point in time.
Okay.
Other car washes are 1-bay, maybe 2-bay car washes. This, you can fit several cars in at a time, so many more cars can go through at a time.
We talked a little bit about the usage at Plan Commission, and I don't believe we're monitoring anybody on the other car wash, are we, as far as their
That's
discharge?
correct, all right.
And also, the way we monitor it is through how much water they use. Because that's how we monitor everybody's wastewater, is through their usage of water. And if for some reason they start using double the amount, we're gonna know that they're probably not recycling as much as they wanted to. So that's what we talked about. I just wanted to bring that up.
No, that's fair. It's awesome that somebody's gonna attempt 70-80% recycled in a car wash world. I'm not against
Right.
it. That's fantastic.
So
I just have not heard of it, so I'm going, makes sense.
There's 3 septic tanks sitting there. Is that where all the recycling goes?
Correct.
It is. Okay, so you don't have to get those out. I don't know if anybody's ever gone through one of these things before, but I have, and you know, with that 28% that doesn't get cleaned, sometimes the water doesn't smell very good. And then I want to know who's going to monitor this, you know, I got a feeling there might be a some car wash rage because you're going from 3 lanes down to 1 in there, and that could be interesting.
There's actual bars that come down, and then when you feed the machine, the car wash raises the bar and lets you go in. They'll know what car wash you bought. It's not just a single style. There's the deluxe and the premium and the standard. So, you know, how much money you put in depends on what car wash you get, and it'll tell you when it's your turn.
Oh, sure. I mean, but the rage getting to that point, that's going to be quite interesting. Don't you think? I
It's
think.
similar to car washes that we currently have, yeah, with
Yeah, well,
2 lanes,
yeah.
yeah.
I think the chief will have some business out there. No wonder they're going to install,
So there's been some discussion in regards to the water usage, and point number 10 in the packet is the applicant comfortable conducting yearly flow tests at the manhole and reporting those to the sanitary utility? The comment is LCCW Investments would prefer the city of Oconomowoc conduct those annual flow tests. I don't know if I'm comfortable with yearly testing as opposed to daily monitoring and more frequent reporting, especially during those high-use times. If you have that spring day that everybody's hitting that car wash, and they had an issue with the recycling during that period of time, the amount of influx into the system would be dramatic, and we wouldn't know about that until after it's done. There's no structure in here in regards to steps for violation and rectifying that. So I'd like to see some of that addressed as well.
Eric?
this is a question for the city attorney. Can we require one car wash to monitor their stuff on a daily basis and not have the other ones do it?
Yes, but monitoring on a daily basis would require a sampling manhole and probably a flow meter, which I think if you talk to your experts in the sanitary sewer business will say that it's absolutely unnecessary. You have the limitations on what they can put in. They will have to live with those limitations, and they take the risk that if they exceed those limitations, they're shut down. So I would defer to the experts here. I think that it's a little bit of overkill. But to your point, when you have a pinch point in a portion of your system and you're thinking, gee, should we really allow this in, or should we save some capacity for Peter Paul Bell later, yeah, you could do it.
Go ahead.
The concern I have with that isn't necessarily to pick on one as opposed to another, but the way that this is being proposed is a 70-80% recycled position as opposed to a Quick Trip or the Fleet Farm car washes that were standard car washes that weren't promoted as highly recycled. And that kind of drives the utilization of that property and the infrastructure required in order to do that, which is something that we've addressed in regards to the surrounding areas. So that would be the reason for that kind of monitoring, not that I'm opposed to a car wash or we're not picking winners or losers, but how that car wash functions is specifically part of what we're considering for the proposal. It's a highly recycled water content, high volume system. And if there's not a system to monitor that and maintain that, then I have concern about that.
One of the concerns you're
Why don't you
talking
come up
about,
to the microphone,
Microphone.
Kevin?
the concern you're talking about is with flow monitoring. We can monitor on an hourly basis what exactly going through their water flow meter. If that water flow meter would start increasing in flows, or we'd have higher flows at the treatment plant, we could just talk to them directly and find out. The water department can monitor and tell us how much flow is going through that place on a 24-hour period, hourly. So there is a possibility, there is a way already set up to do monitoring.
Cool, as long as we have that process in place and could identify that rapidly as opposed to monthly or yearly, that would be
Okay.
okay.
Charlie?
Yeah, I haven't heard or read anything here that would allow me to make a vote to deny the conditional use permit. So I'm going to support it because I don't feel like I can deny it. That being said, I think this is one of the worst spots for a car wash in the city. It's right next to, or right in the area of 3 other ones, and I would be surprised if all of these car washes are going to be able to make a living doing this. I kind of expect somewhere in the not-too-distant future, this will be an empty building.
Go ahead, Lou.
I don't know who would best answer this. The materials that are being reclaimed in the recycling process, does that become hazardous material? Is there a special process for disposing of that, or is there a special service that you engage with? And what happens if there's a leak associated with that or some kind of a spill?
Right, there are baffles in the tank where we would collect all the sediment that feeds or falls by gravity. The water piping between the tanks is then above that sediment so that we're reusing more fresh water, and then of course we have to clean the tanks out.
What happens to the sediment then?
Right.
That's what he's saying.
Sediment has to be cleaned out on a regular basis.
Where is it hauled to? Is it hauled away to a landfill or a hazardous waste, or?
That's a great question. I believe it's to a landfill. I don't know if Will and Chris could elaborate on that. Yeah, but it is hauled off-site. Right.
But is it considered hazardous waste, though?
No, it's not
It's
considered
not
hazardous
considered
waste.
hazardous
Well,
waste,
there
okay.
would be oil on top of it, so that's got to go someplace.
The oil's on top, but that's, the water level is below that, and the sediment is heavier, and that's what we're talking about, is the actual sediment we'd clean out.
Just again, the remnants associated with the recycling process, which would include sediment,
Right.
oil, and potentially antifreeze, and whatever other materials would be recaptured as part of that recycling process. I would think there would be a hazardous material type qualification for that with that kind of material. I don't know, I'm just,
Come up to the microphone.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
Like any operating business, we're gonna have to have MSDS process sheets. And we don't have all the operational plans of exactly where these things are going. But like regular OSHA codes and standards and any local ordinances that exist for these chemicals, we're gonna have to follow them. So we're not just gonna dump them. Whatever their final makeup is, we're gonna have to follow, just like what is it, Firestone next door, changing oil.
Mhm.
I don't know exactly where they dump their oil or what they do with it, but we're gonna have to be doing those same sort of things.
But they know where it goes.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They're already up and running, and we have suppliers, we have vendors, we have our general contractor, we have all these people that come together to put the operations in place once they've begun. We just are not quite that far yet.
I guess I have a question for Jason or whatever. What are all the other car washes, they just run it down the drain, right? So it just goes to the sewer plant? So gets cleaned.
That's my understanding.
It's clean there, so.
I'm not aware of any other car wash that recycles water in the
Okay.
city.
So,
Yeah, and that was one of my comments is, you know, every time it rains, you know, that same stuff's coming off your car and it's just going into the rivers, streams,
Yeah.
whatever. So, you know, the extent that they're reclaiming some of it or all of it, whether it's oils or chemicals coming off the car, I mean, that's a good thing, I think. Obviously, they're gonna have to comply with those regulations. There are chemical regulations, hazmat regulations, et cetera, that they're gonna have to comply with. If they're sucking oil out of there, it becomes essentially like a produced water of some kind, and they're gonna have to deal with it. And, you know, that's up to them, just like any company, you know, that disposes of electronic devices or does whatever. So I think we gotta be careful not to put too much, these guys comply with their CUP permit process. I don't know that we can put more requirements on them.
Lou?
And I agree, the CUP process is in place and is the driving factor in approving or disapproving the acceptance of that. Understanding what the operation is, the unique nature of having a highly recycled car wash and the concentration of what's left over is something to consider in that CUP, I believe, and how that impacts the infrastructure with it being promoted as a low outflow car wash is also something to be considered in the CUP process, because we did approve a 315-unit apartment complex, and we do need to be aware of the use of property, conditional and otherwise, associated with what goes around that and what it does to the infrastructure.
Car wash. You know, Charlie came up with the thing that he really was going to vote for everything, but, you know, the competition's pretty stiff. And the thing that scares me about a car wash like this is there's no other revenue coming in except for the car wash. I mean, the other guys have gas and change oils and snacks and all the other stuff. So I hate to see a building be sitting out there in the middle of a cornfield, you know, vacant after a while, but it's only my feeling.
I have a quick question for the applicant. To that point, because we do have a lot of tunnel car washes in the area, had you guys ever considered doing this as a full-service car wash? Because there isn't one for several miles around us, and I think there's a great need for that in Oconomowoc.
We'd love to do that. We did consider, we're gonna be the only tunnel car wash in Oconomowoc that is operating at the capacity that we're operating. The full-service car wash industry is a much higher cost model. I mean, you're looking at anywhere from 25 to 35 employees. We have a few managers, a few assistant managers, and we're hoping to work with the local schools to have internship programs and part-time educational programs for these kids to come and work after school. So it makes it a more manageable labor model for us. So we'd love to do it. We would need a lot more square footage, a lot more labor, and right now, being that we're entrepreneurs trying to get into this industry, we think that the safest bet at this point in time is to bank on the low labor model, high throughput, high quality.
I'm just thinking if there's not as much demand across the board for all of the car washes in the area, maybe you consider a full service or partial full service.
Yeah, and I think, so one of the things that we've talked about is we have room on the southern side of the lot if we wanted to expand on the driveway at a later point in time to add more options of service, whether it's more dryers, whether it's a drying area and a vacuuming area that we can offer for people. We've looked at detailing. But at the end of the day, from a business standpoint, a lot of things come back to your gross margins and capacity. So when we're looking at detailing, and if you're doing 2-3 cars a day over 365 days a year, we're gonna end up with an empty building. So I definitely would love to do that, and if we can get the community support and be pulling through a few hundred cars a day, and we get a lot of feedback that that's something that is requested of us, we will absolutely consider it, because it's definitely a good service. It's a good business to be in. It's just something that is a lot more cost prohibitive up front without really knowing exactly what the community wants.
I have a question regarding what you were talking about regarding speed. How long does it take for a car to go through your car wash as compared to having one washed at, say, a Quick Trip?
So it's tough to say, because we can adjust the speed of the conveyor. So let's say it's a summer day and we're slower, and people wanna, we're not in a huge hurry. We can slow that conveyor down to do maybe, let's call it 100 cars per hour speed. On a spring day, when people want to get the salt off their car and there's people that want to fly through there, we can crank it up to 120, 130, 140 cars per hour. The reason that happens is because that conveyor is always loading people on and always loading people, or not loading them, offloading them at the end. 125-foot long conveyor, we can put, 8 cars on there. So essentially what you're going to see is one car can come in and one car can go out every 15 to 30 seconds.
Okay, and in comparison to some of the other ones, which take several minutes.
Well, not only do they take several minutes, but it only can do one at a time. So if there's a 5-car line in front of you, you're waiting 25 minutes just to be the 5th car.
Right.
5th car in ours, you'll be in there in a minute and a half.
Right, and that's the difference, I think. Go ahead, Lou.
This isn't necessarily a question for you. I think you've done a great job helping us understand your operation.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, this isn't necessarily about the specific operation and the speed of cars. While that is a great thing to understand, it's about the CUP and the 6 items associated with the CUP. And I was hoping you could put that back up on the screen, so as we're evaluating all this information, we can apply it accordingly.
Okay, any other comment? Go ahead, Kevin.
I think one of the concerns that I have is just the redundancy. I would be very interested in finding out how the other car washes are doing, not on the peak times, but on those times when maybe it's not a lot of individuals going to them. I don't know. I'm really tossed up here. I understand it's conditional use, and I understand that they've met everything that we've complied. But I think in the future, guys, we really need to look at this CUP and try and figure out how we can not have as much of a redundancy, because I want them to be successful, but I just don't know if that area is going to be that successful.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Lou.
I just want to, I understand your concern, Kevin, and to Matt's point, we can't pick winners or losers.
Well,
so,
you can't. No, absolutely.
That can't be our concern. We have to rely on their entrepreneurial spirit and making it work. But what we do have to evaluate is the criteria associated with the CUP, and as long as the vote is in accordance with that, then I think we're fine.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, based on what I've heard and what I've seen in the evidence presented, both by the applicant and the information that we've requested and been provided, I believe that the applicants have substantially complied with the 6 standards for vehicle service based on the evidence presented, and I'll be voting in favor of granting the CUP.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
Mayor, it was an oversight on my part that in the conditional use permit itself, I missed item D up there. I mean, obviously, I know that security cameras are to be installed, but it's not a formal condition. And I would ask that the council, if they vote on this tonight, that they direct staff to put condition or letter D have staff direct that into the document.
Who made the motion?
We don't have a motion.
We don't have a
Are we,
motion?
oh, excuse me, for the conditional use. We
Yes.
do.
We have a motion for the
Matt
CUP.
did made the motion.
Add to your motion?
Yeah, I can, well, we could do it as an amendment to the motion. or
Well,
just-
either that or just add it to the motion.
I'll just add it to the motion that I originally made to add this, the applicant work with city staff and the police to add the security cameras as required by the vehicle service CUP requirements.
And who made the second?
Second.
So that's in there now? That's good then, Jason? Okay, go ahead.
Would you consider adding the monitoring through utilities, our current infrastructure capabilities of outflow into the CUP, since that is a consideration of use for this particular property?
I think, I'm not sure specifically what you're asking, but I think it's in there under number 5 on the conditional use permit. It's on page, starts on the bottom of page 2. Go to the actual conditional use permit. There's a lot of language about sanitary discharge in the permit. And it talks about any change in operation or documented increase in this rate shall be subject to review and approval by the city wastewater operations manager. And it talks about then the council getting involved with, as well. So there's stuff in there in the
Yeah,
document.
And we added that documented at the plan commission, so that's the documented part where it's monitored.
But that's not part of the 6 items for the CUP.
But it's part of the, this is just the highlights.
Those are the standards of the
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay. Correct.
This
Alright.
is the document that,
It's in the conditional use permit.
Okay.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Call the roll.
Alderman Shaw,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis,
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray,
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Rogers,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Okay, and moving back to item A, consider acting on a certified survey map to create one new lot at approximately 1600 Summit Avenue. We need a motion to approve the certified survey map.
So moved?
Second.
That's already been presented to you, so you all know what that is. Any questions? Nate, go ahead.
I just want to bring up a point
Go ahead.
that made at Plan Commission again, is that this is a private driveway, so it's not being built to city standards, and we would not take it over at someday
No, not at
because
all.
it's not being built to city standards.
If and when that addition, that area ever gets expanded, it'll be private. Okay. Seeing no other questions, call the roll, please.
Alderman Shaw,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis,
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Rogers,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Next item is consider our act on an extraterritorial certified survey map combining parcels and creating one new lot at West 340, North 7661 Town Light Road in the town of Oconomowoc.
the city plan commission and common council reviewed this similar land division on the same property back in June. That application took no action on that, and it since died, and then it was automatically approved, but it was never recorded. The applicant has come back now and asking for a revised certified survey map, and he's taking additional land that he owns, combining it, and he's creating one new parcel. He's taking the existing farmhouse, and he wants to divide that out. But the 2 other lots that were on that are no longer being created. It's kind of a convoluted situation, but this is in the town of Oconomowoc. It's 1.75 miles from our boundary. Staff is still not in favor of this. If you remember, the idea here is to preserve as much farmland as possible. So they're kind of carving out just the land around the house, but it's 1,000 feet in off the road. It's being served by an access easement. It's not very good planning, but I'm not want to stand in the way. The applicant, Mr. Robinson, David Robinson, has been working with the town of Oconomowoc as well as Waukesha County for a couple couple of years on this one. I don't want to stand in their way. I don't think this will ever be part of the city of Oconomowoc. It is a farmland preservation thing, but to me, it sets bad precedents for future people. I'd like that the common council take no action and let it expire in 90 days, and then they could get it recorded. That's what the Plan Commission recommended, that the city just take no formal action and let the timeline expire. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This usually happens on things that are outside of the city. This is north of Highway K, so it's
Extraterritorial zoning.
it's not part of the city, never will be.
Didn't we talk about this once before?
Yep.
Different one. We did this.
In
one
no
earlier.
action.
Oh, yeah.
But they changed it.
They changed
They're
it.
changing again.
So
Okay.
We just don't do anything.
Okay.
Okay? Good? Okay, moving on.
Take
You
no
you don't
action.
need take no action. We don't even take a motion, do we?
Nope.
No, we're done.
Unless we decide to do a motion.
No.
Take no action.
Next item is,
We don't do anything. No action. That won't look good in the
we did.
paper.
I think that's what we did. Next item is under new business, consider act on a 2020 Western Lakes Fire Department Fire District budget. We need a motion to approve that budget.
So moved.
Second.
Brad?
Right.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I provided a memorandum of the revisions of the 2020 operation and capital budget for you. The operating budget, from what was discussed at the last meeting, decreased $9,340 from what we discussed at our September meeting. That is with the town of Oconomowoc and the town of Merton both making positive motions to work with through contract the Western Lakes Fire District in 2020. That also did cause us to have to amend our capital budget, which for the city of Oconomowoc decreased $1,762 from what was approved back in June.
Good. Any questions? We went through all this pretty much in detail a few weeks back, so. Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Yes, we do.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Okay, next item is consider or act on a concession agreement with R&S Hospitality at City Beach. We need a motion to approve the concession agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Craig, your first presentation.
Good evening. I haven't been up here since July. It's good to be here.
Interrogation.
You got a minute.
Minute, that would be fantastic.
Only 3 minutes.
Before you have an agreement with Buddy's Beach Bungalow, which expired on September 30th of 2019. John Sutner, R&S Hospitality, doing business as Buddy's Beach Bungalow, is interested in renewing the agreement with the city to operate it and bands at the beach at City Beach for 5 years with the possibility of an additional 5-year extension. Mr. Sutner has operated the concessions for the past 7 years. Since Mr. Sutner holds a liquor license, the Department of Revenue no longer allows the city to collect a percentage of the sales, so we agreed to a flat fee compensation that you see in the agreement that increases slowly over the course of the agreement. The bans at the beach events have grown over the years, so included into the agreement is a term sheet to specifically address the concert events. Included in that term sheet is a clause that the city would provide 1 community service officer for the duration of each event. And as it stands, this would be paid out of the Park Rec Forestry budget. And also the community center restrooms would be available for each of the concerts. As far as financial impact to our department, it's kind of continuous, but the staff would support cleanup of the park, restroom cleaning, and portable toilet pumping after concerts. And we would also pay for the 1 community service officer during the duration of each event. The Park and Recreation Board approved the concession agreement at their October meeting and recommended it forward for approval to the Common Council. Mr. Sutner's in the audience tonight as well, so I'm happy to answer questions, or John can as well.
Thank you. We have a motion? We have a motion.
Yes, we
Okay,
do.
let's open it up for discussion. Go ahead, Tom.
I don't believe it's a liquor license. It's a class,
The beer
beer
license.
beer wine
B or
license.
something, right?
Yeah, it's a beer license.
You're talking to an old liquor guy here, so I caught that.
I couldn't get that past you. Yes, the beer,
Old one,
beer
for
license.
sure.
Go ahead, Matt.
Beer is liquor.
Hello, Craig.
No, it's, no,
So
it's
you
not.
don't know my history on this issue. I'm curious, would the Park and Rec Board vote for this unanimously?
Yes.
Hasn't the agreement in the past been a 3-year?
The last one actually was 4, It was 2016 through this year.
So I've had, I don't necessarily have a problem with what they're doing there. I just have heartache with any city deals, and we've had a lot of city deals over the past couple of years that we've tried to clean up where someone has extended terms for years and years and years. This has never gone out, as far as I understood, for any kind of RFP or to find out if anyone else wants to run concession stand at the city beach. So essentially, by agreeing to this, what we're doing is creating a 5-year monopoly. And at least the way it's gone so far, a monopoly in perpetuity approved by the city. And the next vote is going to be on the pontoon boat usage, which I also am against, at least at the rate they're doing it. I don't like the 5-year deal. I think to keep consistency, you probably want at least 2 or 3 years. I think that makes sense to me. 5 years is too long, because what'll end up happening is, you know, my kids will be on council and they'll still be there running it. And we've never found out if anyone else can run it better, make us more money, do anything else. And look, it's prime frontage on the lake. And I don't understand why we don't RFP this or put this out to someone else. So I'm going to be voting against it as stated. I would like to make an amendment to the motion and that we change the terms from 5 years back to 3 years.
Can I address this?
Sure.
This is not a 5-year contract. You have a 30-day out anytime you want, period.
Where's that?
Paragraph 16.
What are their so let's say we've got a so what is it, a lease with just an option out?
It is a concession agreement, and if you don't like it anymore, you can kick them out.
But, okay, so that's good. I'm glad that's written in there. But how do we get anyone else interested in doing anything there if we have this kind of agreement with someone else this long? I mean, that's the problem, right? Is if you say we're not going to say we don't like you anymore, because then we lose concessions for the whole year. And how do we get someone else in there to be interested in it?
Well, that's a policy decision, but I think anybody would jump at the chance.
Well, I agree.
Charlie?
Well, I guess that was going to be my question. Has anybody come to the city to ask about being able to run that concession stand?
Not that I'm aware of.
Now, I know when they were talking about the community center itself, there was an RFP for the concession that was potentially going to be in the basement of that, which we got no takers on.
No.
So at this point, I haven't heard anybody that's come forward to say, oh, I would rather do it instead of Buddy's Beach Bungalow.
Kevin?
Okay, so I'm a little confused here, Matt. Why do you care? We just went ahead, we voted in something that we're going to have such a redundancy. We're going to have more car washes on one corner than there will be bars in the city, which is pretty tough to do. Why do you care?
Well, can I respond to that, Mayor? I know you don't want that to be
Let's-
a
yeah, I
debate.
know, we don't wanna be
I'll
debating.
take my
We don't
turn.
wanna
It's not a matter of debating, but my point here is we have a gentleman that wants to give a benefit to the city. There haven't been any complaints that I'm aware of. I think he's done an excellent job. And what he's trying to do here to better his ability to serve our community, he wants to make sure that the investment money that he may have to spend to do that is not just going by the wayside, but it's gonna bring something back to him over the next 5 or 10 years, which makes perfect sense to me.
Is there an investment?
But then on the
that he's
same
doing?
token, I'm hearing on two sides of the mouth, of your mouth here in the one second, well, we don't really care about our small businesses, but then on the same token, I hear, well, now we care. So you got to help me with this so that I understand where you're coming from.
So can I address
yeah.
a couple of the questions?
Go ahead.
So when we met with John, which has been a number of times, and John can certainly speak to this, one, his investment in the building itself and the machinery that goes into it, he wants to be able to plan and invest for the future. So having a 5-year agreement makes a lot of sense to him for fix-ups of the buildings, improvements he's going to pay for. It also helps us as a city with consistency, as you mentioned. First off, with the vendor who we're working with, which we've received nothing but good response from the community. Also helps us with city budget planning and special event planning. A big piece of this is that concert series. There's now up to 7 concerts. It's something that the city attempted or did in some way early on, and really didn't have the people power to do the concerts, do the sponsorships. John actually books the bands, he does the marketing, gets sponsorship. So I think that's a key piece. And again, as far as an RFP, I think we have a positive relationship with the concessionaire. High quality is expected, and it has been happening. So I think those are some of the reasons that I think that John would mention, and I just wanted to mention to you.
Since John is here, and he has made the investment, and could you provide some summary to council in regards to why the 5-year term is asked for? I support it, and I know the investment that has been made thus far, and I think it's good for the community and for the body to understand that.
I'm happy to do so. You know, you don't have a copy of this, but this was provided to the Park and Rec Board. And, you know, as of to date, in lease payments, $27,700 in the last 6 years have been paid to the city. And that's just for the land. The building is actually owned by me. I built the building and everything in it. So it's just for leasing the land. With that being said, the reinvestment into the building since in the last 5 years has been, with the boats, is $106,000. Now, with that being said, some of the things that Buddy's Beach Bungalow affords the city, Buddy's Beach Bungalow put $17,500 into the Bands of the Beach. They also donated $1,850 to the City Drama Club, $1,500 to the Lacrosse Club, $10,000 to the K-9 unit of Waukesha County Sheriff's Department, and then also the YMCA Youth Leadership, $1,250. That's just within the last 5 years, for a total of $32,100. This is a revenue stream that allows us to give back to the community. It does not line the pockets of the Suttner family or R&S Hospitality. We continue to find ways to help those that need help, and that's why we're doing this. As far as why I want the 5-year agreement, so I can focus more on larger things, like the agreements with the K-9 unit. Maybe I do a longer-term deal with the YMCA to help with programs there, or the high school. Everybody knows community programs continue to shrink as far as availability of funds. If an outside source can help with that, I think it makes sense. So, thank you.
Derek, you had your hand up?
He answered my questions. I was
answered your
concerned about him. I thought he built the
Yeah.
building and everything inside of it, so.
Lou?
With the summary provided, I appreciate the investment into the community, into the facility and into the events. Our community is, and our downtown is an event-driven downtown that helps to support that, not only there, but throughout the downtown area as those people come to visit and spend money at various locations. So, thank you.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Matt.
Well, let me respond to just a few things. I didn't want to make a big deal out of this. Thanks for coming, Mr. Suttner. I don't have a problem with Buddy's Beach Bungalow. This is more of a philosophical argument, is why do we give a deal out to someone in perpetuity, which we've done in other aspects of the city, and don't put this out for maybe some other bids? Granted, no one's come maybe and said something like, hey, I want to run that concessions. Why would they? I mean, if they come to this meeting or they opened up this packet and said he's got a 5-year deal, who's going to ever come and try to get that? One question I had was, is there he pays land lease too on the land? That's what he said. Mr. Suttner said that there's a lease.
No,
payment?
it's based on, well, in this case now, because of the change of it was 15% of gross sales, but now it'll be a flat fee.
Okay, so
that's-
there's no lease of the building, it's just that flat fee, that's all he's paying to the city on it.
Essentially, it's a land lease for the land upon which he operates.
But there's not additional payments for a lease, that's, okay.
It is
Just this $4,000.
$4,500 a
Right.
year,
Okay, so,
the lease payment.
again, my discussion, I'm not speaking out of both sides of my mouth here. What I want our city to do is engage other people, not just, and again, it has nothing to do with Mr. Suttner or Buddy's Beach. I mean, my kids go down there, we've probably, $200-300 probably a summer in nachos and cheese and jalapenos and beer. So it's nothing against Beach Bungalow. It's, why aren't we reaching out, putting an ad out, and seeing if there's other vendors that want to bid on this spot? I mean, it's an ideal spot. So I just think it's problematic for that reason. I don't like the 5-year, but I probably don't have a lot of support, so I'm not going to make that amendment. And again, I'm not speaking out of both sides of my mouth. This group is doing it also because they obviously make money too. Nobody's going to do this for free. This is not a service to the community. This isn't a nonprofit, okay? Somebody's making money, whether they're donating all or whatever they're doing, someone's making money, okay? So we can do this at arm's length, and we can, look at it very carefully. And it is a little different than car wash. There's no competition here. The car washes can come and do whatever they want. In fact, the guy we gave the conditional use permit today is the small guy, and he's up against Fleet Farm, which is owned by an investment conglomerate, and Quick Trip, which is a massive company. So what I'd like to do is see that competition. That's what makes things good. And if there were multiple bidders, Buddy's could even get better. And we don't have that. So what we're faced with is a fait accompli. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does Buddy's pay for the utilities that are used, or is it something absorbed?
I believe that's absorbed by the city.
I'd like to know how much the utilities are then at some point.
I don't know if we can separate that. I don't think there's a separate meter there. I can check, but.
Okay, because I know a friend who owns a tavern, I was floored by his electrical bills every month. I'd like to make sure that we're not losing money on the deal.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor, correct?
Correct.
Call the roll, please.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Swart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Nay.
Alderman Rozak.
Nay.
Moving on, there's, next item is consider acting a pontoon boat dock, boat docking lease with RNS Hospitality on Lake LaBelle. Need a motion to approve the lease?
Make
So
a motion
moved.
to approve the lease.
We have a motion and a second. Did you want to?
Yeah, there's no early out on this one.
So this, why don't you explain it, and then we'll go from there.
So same concessionaire, John Sutner, RNS Hospitality, has an agreement with the city for the past 4 years to moor and rent up to 2 pontoon boats from the City Beach main dock. The lease also expired on September 30th of this year. Mr. Sutner is interested again in a 5-year lease with a possibility of a 5-year extension. The compensation for this lease does remain at the 15% of each boat rental. The city currently receives, just as a comparison, because this question has come up before, the city currently receives $900 per boat mooring at the slip, which is at the community center mainland location. So trying to show you that we brought in $2,385 this year, which is more than 2 of the boat slips would be. Another question that's come up in the past is transient boat docking space. The city has recently added a couple of different docks and changed some of the main launch around to include up to 6 transient boat docking spaces. And the space that these 2 pontoon boats would be located in are actually very shallow spots and not great for transient boat docking. So we think it's a good use of some very limited space. The Park and Recreation Board approved this docking lease at their October meeting as well, and have recommended it approval forward to the Common Council. Again, happy to answer any questions.
My concerns with this are the same as the other one, and this one doesn't have an out clause. You're giving a monopoly to use public property for 5 years to one company. And again, nothing against Mr. Sutner and what they're doing. But those are boat docks that all the taxpayers paid for. And those are expensive. I mean, we were talking about, I think last year, how much it's gonna cost to redo some of these boat docks. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we're essentially letting a private company just use them. And now we're saying you can use it for 5 years and nobody can kick you out unless there's some kind of malfeasance, I'm sure, of some kind. Again, this one does not, as Stan pointed out, have an out clause, so we're stuck with it for 5 years unless there's some major problem, I suppose. I don't even know how we get out of this thing if we want to. So I think this is one where we should change it to 3 years or 2 years. And if he's doing a good job, he's going to come back and get the lease.
Would you please let us know why that 5-year term as opposed to a 2-3-year term would apply to the boats, and why the variance in the
Well, the boats,
request?
the boats again is an investment, and we continue to reinvest in the boats. Every time you do anything to a boat, it's a lot of money. Both the boats over this past winter, we redid all the floors to them. That was almost $10,000. And in order to continue to reinvest, there's got to be some assurance that I'm going to have a business. And if we put a new boat in the water, that's going to be $30,000. So all that being considered, that's why I'm asking for 5 years.
Go ahead.
One other question. So it sounds like, and this is for Craig, I'm sorry. You mentioned that the revenue generated from the two slips is currently more than what we would get from a typical slip in our inventory of available moorings. What is the policy associated with city resident use of those moorings and those slips? Is it year by year? As long as they're on it, does it continue to renew? Is there some mirroring of that in this?
Yeah, it's
type
an
of-
interesting rotation. Basically, the folks move, they start at the worst spot, I'd say, and they move their way up to the best, and then they move on. And there is a waiting list for it. So that, I don't think it's a large waiting list, but that's something we send out in January for renewals, and folks move up basically 2 at a time towards the top. So right now, you could go out, take the little paddle boat, which you need a second paddle boat to get out to because of all the water, to get out to your boat. That's the island section, and then there's the mainland section with the decking, and that's the obviously more preferred. We charge a little more money for that.
I like the idea of reducing it to a 3-year lease, probably not 2. And I do think that it's a nice service to have boat rentals for the community as well as Buddy's Beach Bungalow. I think even if we don't make money on it, it's something nice to have down there. So that's why I'm in support of this. And if somebody else wants to present the boat launching or the boat rentals in 3 years and wants to cut us a better deal, then I guess we'd have to entertain that.
If you want to change the term, you should make a motion.
I'll make a motion to reduce it to 3 years since there's no out clause.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, now we have an amended motion. Any other discussion on that? You're fine with that?
Oh, you heard that? I went like this, for effect.
Go ahead.
So would that be a 3-year agreement with renewal option for the 5, or is
For
that?
another 3 years, I would think.
3 and 3.
Go ahead.
So if someone else came in and said that they wanted a shot at doing this, then what? What's the procedure?
After 3 years, then, well, the renewal option, well, let's see, how does that work?
After
Is
3
it-
years, you would talk about it as to whether or not you would agree to renew.
It's up to us. So we have a motion to change it to 3 years. Any no other discussion, call the roll.
Alderman Shaw.
Nay.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Swart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Rozak.
Aye.
Now it's a 3-year term. Any other questions? Seeing none, call the roll.
Okay, Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Swart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Okay, moving on, staff reports.
Yes, I have the, Lori, can you cue up or Ivan, thank you. We've got the third quarter strategic plan report for you tonight. Let's wait for a minute as, thank you. All right. All right, third quarter strategic plan update. So as you recall, we have 109 action items within our strategic plan for the 5-year period. At this point, we have 14% of those completed, and then we've got, 62% of those are in progress or ongoing items. Items that were completed in the third quarter, just briefly, we updated our fire code for the fire inspection fees. We completed the Worthington Railroad crossing. We evaluated our future downtown parking opportunities. The Teen Center Developing Routes was unveiled. We completed our Wizard of Oz Plaza. We adopted our street program policy and procedures, and we updated our impact fee ordinance. So we accomplished quite a bit in the third quarter. Items that began or are in process during the third quarter and will continue on. We have the public safety facility. We awarded that contract. So the contractor started work this week on the demolition of the new facility. We have RFP proposals were received for our next city well, so those will be coming forward with a recommendation. Our sewer hydraulic capacity study, as you know, has been in process. We expect the final report to be completed this month. Thackeray Trail Extension, the council passed the resolution to proceed with that extension as a 2020 project. And that was in conjunction with looking at the reconstruction of the existing street section. And the council approved the configuration of that, and that will be a 2021 project. We continue work on our comprehensive land use plan update, so we expect that to be adopted in the fourth quarter. We just had our public information meeting on that last week. We've had continued discussions with the Olympia area redevelopment. In the Paps Farms area development area, we had the Mandel project come through for approvals and the Lake Country Car Wash project tonight. We've construction projects, the Northeast Regional Park, the Phase 1 improvements, the Rosenau Creek Trail kicked off and are still in process, and we began the evaluation of our building inspection services. So many of these things will continue on into the fourth quarter. We had a few things that shifted priority with the Collins Street parking lot, with the council direction in August to proceed with this project in 2020. You remember this was originally scheduled for 2019, and we parked it until we could look at the until we could look at the downtown parking opportunities, and so now this will proceed in 2020. The truck routes project got moved from 19 to 20 with other items going on with our with the comprehensive plan and things, and then the park and open space plan we shifted from 19 to 20 with the transition of our park and rec director. Looking ahead, fourth quarter, in addition to the things that we've already talked about, we are going to begin that work on our development of our long-term funding strategies and plan for the city. So staff will begin putting that together this fourth quarter, and then the council will be revisiting this in early 2020 to kind of lay out our financing plan for the future. Staff is completing work on some required state housing reports that have to be posted on our website by the end of the year. The Southwoods area in the current Villages Summit will attach by the end of the year. We will start the review and analysis of engineering services in the fourth quarter. The Technology Committee is, we had that earlier discussion this evening on that, and we'll be forming a committee to put together a recommendation for what the ultimate structure and focus of that will be. And then behind the scenes, we continued implementation of our document management system and GIS system implementation. So that's really just a brief synopsis of where we're at in the strategic plan. You have the full report in your council packet with more details on all of the individual items. So we'll continue to work towards this and make progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other staff reports?
Nothing else.
Reports and comments from Alderman? Seeing none?
Oh,
Reports-
I had a quick one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe she's watching on TV now, but there was a gal here that, Jill Persick, who came and gave us an F, and for a variety of things that I don't think this council or our mayor or, and you guys are everyone's gonna get blown off their seats. Our city staff deserve an F on. What I'm gonna give someone an F on is not coming 20 minutes earlier to the committee discussion where we actually discussed the formation of the technology committee and what we're doing to address some of those concerns. And then leaving before we could hear that we're addressing those concerns. So I hope she's watching on YouTube and that she'll reach out to me, and we'd be happy to give her more information. But I think our city staff, our mayor, and us council is doing a good job trying to address those issues to the extent we can, because there is a lot out of our hands, and there's only so much we can do.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I also want to second that. I want to thank you because I was going to say something, and I don't know why I didn't. Yeah, I'm kind of taking offense to that F because city staff is doing an excellent job, and we see the things that need to be changed, things that need to be addressed, things that need to be looked at, and we're making the changes that are necessary for the safety of this community. You know, every decision that we make, at least I can only speak for myself here, but I'm hoping I can speak for everyone else. It's not tongue-in-cheek, because we understand that the decisions that we're making are going to impact the next generation. And the fact of the matter here is when somebody stands up there and says that we're not doing a good job and then leaves 20 minutes early because they want to whatever, I really would like to have a one-on-one with that individual and just say, why did you say what you did? You know, it's easy to say it there, but I don't know. I just want the staff to know, I want the mayor to know that it's not an F in any way, shape, or form.
The summaries of our strategic plan are greatly appreciated. It helps not only us as council, but for the community to understand the progress that we've made. Will this document be made available on the website as part of
Yes.
that progression on a quarterly basis?
Yes, obviously the report is in the packet. What we're working on right now, the strategic plan is under my page, but we're working to create a separate strategic plan page where we can put all of the documents related to the strategic plan and make it a little bit more
Friendly?
enticing to look at.
That's great.
Yes,
That'll help.
user-friendly.
Thank you.
Actually, that was Cross Street at Wellington on your railroad crossing.
They did Worthington too.
Worthington.
You did that?
Worthington was the one that was in the stratetic plan.
Oh,
Yeah.
they
Was the one that
finished
had the
crossing.
The sidewalk work was
So
completed.
I'm going to get another F. That's all right. I was actually hoping for a D minus because I've been against 5G since it started, so I'm kind of embarrassed. And then there's one other quick question. You know, when we advertise some of these meetings, like I guess that I was co-sponsor of Lou and for our rec department director, and then and that thing with the new apartment thing out there, you know, they put it on the website, I guess. But you know, darn it, there's a lot of people that don't have websites that you got to use the RAG, the enterprise. It's our newspaper, and you got to put it in there for these people, even if it's that little section in there. What's things to come by? Because I was the only one at that one meeting, so I had to entertain those people for a half hour. So it turned out to be good, but that was it. So,
Only
but
cost 3 rounds.
yeah, no,
That's my point.
no, they never showed up. So.
Karen?
To Matt and Kevin's comments about the public citizen comments, I think we need to clarify for the record too that none of us knew about the 5G potential rollout from US Cellular until we saw it in the paper. And from my understanding, neither did Sarah or the mayor. So I'd really like that to be on the public
US Cellular
record
doesn't tell
also.
us what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was gonna say. Wait a second, what? Okay, there's gotta be something we can do about this. There's got to be, because I am against 5G until I know that it's not going to, in any way, shape, or form, hurt us. I don't think we're being human health experiments or anything along those lines. There has got to be something we can do. I'm sorry, I mean, if you know, on way too many occasions, I'm talking out of line here, but on way too many occasions, I think that sometimes we've kind of rolled over because of the fact that we don't want the fight. This is one of those fights that I want.
Okay, any other comments? Go ahead.
My point was just to clarify and get it in the public record that we weren't hiding anything, that none of us knew as well until it came out in the paper, so.
Any no more from them? Reports and comments from the mayor. As was stated, they started demolition or whatever they're doing down on the police station. We are going to have a ceremonial project kickoff on the 28th, which is a week from Monday, 5 o'clock. Anybody wants to show up? Kind of like what we do with the groundbreaking, just to say the project's underway and go from there.
Can't do groundbreaking if it's not.
No,
if
it's,
old.
what we've done before,
Sledgehammer.
we've done it with sledgehammers before when we did
Nice,
Berkshire.
Nice.
So, that's all I have tonight. Next item is closed session per Wisconsin Stats 19.85 per N1 per NE regarding downtown parking. A closed session per Wisconsin Stats, deliberating and negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public businesses whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. We need a motion to go into closed session.
So move.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Alderman Shaw,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Zwart,
Aye.
Alderman Stray,
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Rogers,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Okay, we're in closed session.